So we are discussing about that the change request step configurations, basically the CR step or workflow step configurations. So this is in general settings, process modeling, change request. So this is the definition part which we have seen yesterday discussed. And when you assign a workflow to a particular change request type, after that we need to define the steps for the change request type. Okay, so though once you define the steps, automatically system will show you. Okay, so let's say for example, so this is a configure this step configuration. So this YP11 is the one which we created, new CR type. Okay, for this one I assigned a standard workflow, 86 workflow. Okay, and for which if you are using 86 workflow, so it's your responsibility to configure that workflow from starting onwards. So for this one, I used one CR of ending with 40. Let me show you here. Create change request type. YP. Okay, so here if you look at this, okay, for this one I assigned 40, which is a standard workflow for which already the steps and everything is defined. It's always a two-step approval process. Okay, and this is like you need to configure. It's a template. Now you need to configure this one. Okay, so in either cases, ultimately when you assign a change request workflow to a change request type, you should have some steps, right? So where we will define the steps for 86, that we will discuss it today. Okay, assume that now once we define the steps, right? So let's take this example YP01, where already the steps are there. So once you go here, you can see for this one already there are steps are there. You can see here. So these are the steps, workflow steps or change request steps. Okay, so now when the steps are available, then at each step you can start doing the configurations, like what checks you wanted to keep it enabled, what checks you can skip for a particular step. Okay, so this is overall, not with respect to any entity or any attribute or something. Overall, in your master data, in your MM or BP, for all entities and all attributes, this will be applicable. That means, let's say, for example, you have written a BRF for BADI validation for a particular field ABC indicator at a plant level. Okay, and also you defined one validation for some attributed sales entity level and for some other attributed valuation entity level. So this will run, it will try to run that all the three rules at plant level, at sales level, at valuation level. Okay, now for example, you wanted to bypass for 00 step the plant level validations. Okay, so then you can actually make use of let this this will run, this will be ticked in the first place, and after that you can further go down this one entity type. Okay, so here it shows all the available entities. So from your data model, in our case, we have only one type 1 and one type 4. So that's why it is showing only two entities, entity types here. But it shows in general, it will pick up all the entity types. If you are taking a MM material master CR type, then it will show all the entities. Okay. Now here, what we can do, for example, you wanted to bypass some checks for this particular entity. By default, it says all configured type of checks. What are all configured type of checks? In the above statement where we have the basic data, duplicate check, then BRF validation, BADI validation. So all the checks are there. So that is by default at entity level, all the checks will perform. Now for this particular entity, I wanted to bypass BRF and BADI, all the checks, whatever the checks that are there, BRF, BADI or everything. So then you can choose basic check only. Basic check means in the above, you have only the first one is the one which basic. So you can skip all validations here for this particular entity. And for this particular entity, it will run on the configured checks.
When you say only the basic check only means, can you go back, actually?
Yeah.
So, yeah, thank you.
So when I say basic check, this one.
Only one,
Yep,
not everything,
yep.
right? Yeah.
Not everything. So
Yeah. Okay.
either you run all these checks or only basic check.
Oh, got it.
Okay,
Thank you.
because yesterday also we discussed this, you cannot skip it. Whether it is for all the entities or for a particular entity attribute, this you cannot skip. This has to run. But other things are basically where you have your custom checks, either your duplicate check or your BRF or BADI. All these are the custom ones. Okay, so those you can skip, but the standard basic check you cannot skip it. Okay, so this is the one at entity level you can control. Now, for our data model, YP data model, we have only two entity types. Let's say, for example, I take another CR type. Let's say mat material. So first I need to choose at which step, and then I'll go to the entity types. So now see here, all the entity types are available. How many? 50 entities are there. All the 50 entities are available here. Okay. So now for a particular plant entity, you wanted to bypass something, you can choose basic check only. Okay. So this
These
is the
all
one.
50 entity types automatically will trigger or will add actually?
No, we don't add it. Automatically pick up from your data model.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, fine. So now let's say, for example, for for this particular Mara basic entity also, I wanted to run all the validations, but there is one attribute under this particular entity. For that one, I wanted to skip. That means if you look at this one, the first configuration yesterday we discussed is at the overall object level for all the entities and all the attributes. Now, up one level down, it will be at entity level. Now, further, the lowest level is attribute level. So that also you can configure. If you okay, see now what happens under this entity, it shows all the attributes. Now for this, let's say this is the plant specific material status attribute. You wanted to skip if any validations are there against this particular field. That you can always choose. Standard means everything will run. Unless you can say either you can say no required field check. That means there won't be any check is performed. Okay, and not relevant. When you say not relevant, this attribute will become read only at this particular step automatically. That means it will be only display only. User he cannot enter the data as well. Okay. Maybe at the next step, you can make it as a standard so that user can actually edit that field. So here you have three options, either all checks or no checks. But when you say no check, it will include, it will run the basic check. After that, your BRF or BADI, all the checks won't perform. Not relevant means it will become read only. Okay. Any questions?
There is another option in standard, right? There is a second option, no required something. So if we can select that, so if we gonna enter, no required field check is there, no? So if we enter any data, so automatic population of the data will also be disabled, right?
No, which one? The second option, no required field check. So
Field
this
checks.
is again this is for validations, not for the derivations. Okay. So derivation means if you have when you say no required field check, system won't perform any check. But if there is any derivation for this field, that derivation will happen.
Okay. So it will stop only validation.
Validations only. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Fine. Yep.
For the standard one, it will allow all the validation and derivations. Yes. And for the second one, no required field check. From the validation point of view, we can restrict this attribute.
Yes.
We can disable for this attribute and
Disable in the sense it won't perform any validation. You can input anything, but system doesn't perform any validations against that field.
Oh, okay. So not relevant means it will be read only.
Read only. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Even the
Thank you.
second one will be applicable for validation and derivation too, right? Not required field.
No required field check. It's only applicable for the validation, not for the derivation.
Derivation. Okay.
Yep. Okay.
Standard means it will applicable both, right?
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So now, one thing is in general, sometimes what happens is SAP by default, it may be some entities by default, let's say, for example, they will select this something like this. Let's say there is a standard default configuration, for example, or someone by knowingly or unknowingly, they change this configuration. Now, after that, in the backend, in your BRF, if you are writing some validations, right? When you are writing some validations using BRF or BADI, so it won't perform the validation, right? So you are not aware of that one. Okay, this is already skipped at this 0 step level. So what you will do? Okay, though I have written the validation, but it is not working. I don't see that message on the screen. Okay, so then when something is like that, your validation is correct, but still you don't see it in the output, right? Then always you just come to this configuration and see whether the validations are set as standard or not. No, it's a very simple, nothing. It's very simple. Let's say, for example, I selected like no relevant. That means in the backend, after that, when I write any BRF rule for the validation purpose, this field should not be blank or something. It won't run that validation, right? Because we are skipping here. We are saying no required field check. So it will never run, even though when you run that configure in the BRF, that is what the no required field check, right? So when that situation comes, then what I'm trying to say, maybe you wanted to perform the validation at that step for that particular field, but when you return that validation, it is not running. Then you need to look at this configuration if someone is already set it as no required field check or not. Okay, fine. So I'll just put it as standard. Okay, fine. After this, there is one more. We don't use this configuration. See, in this entire story, whatever we discussed since yesterday, the stepwise configuration, right? So what is it here important? When you assign a workflow and after that you assign some steps to that workflow and change request step configuration, at each change request step level, you can control few settings. It is not mandatory every time you come and do as these settings. When there are certain requirements out there from business, you can look at if those requirements can be handled using these 3 level of configurations. One is the checks, all the checks at all overall object level, okay, and at entity level and at attribute level. So by making use of these things, you can control the behavior at each step. 0 step, how it should look like. 90 step, how it should look like. 91 step, how it should look like. So that is what important. This is called a stepwise configuration. Okay, so defining the CR type is one, which is very simple and depends on the needs and requirements. You may need to come and configure these, make use of these 3 configuration steps.
Suppose we have a standard change request type, so based on our business requirement, if we create any other Z change request, so which one will take precedence to to kick in actually? So is there any way where we can deactivate, or is there any specific group where they will use a standard versus Z change?
Okay, so see, when you are creating, let me show you here. Let's say, for example, I wanted to create a material. So now when I go here, let's say, for example, in material governance, I'll go to create material. For creating a material, as you mentioned, there are some standard CR types are also available and ZCR types are also available. Now, when you do an F4, because you need to input, it shows that. So it's a user option. User has to choose which CR type he can select for this process. Now again, you decided that, okay, this standard, I don't want it to show it to the user. I want always ensure that user forcibly selects this CR type only. Then what I will do, you can work with the security team and remove this CR type from the user profile.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. So how to remove that from the user profile? That we will talk about. We have a separate section called security roles, their authorization objects. There I will discuss about that. I will show you.
Sure. Thank you.
Okay, fine. So now after this, so there is one more configuration is also there. Now you can see there is something like the last one. For this particular change request type, these are the CR steps or workflow steps. I will show you now. After this, I will show you how to create these steps. But assume that once you create these steps, now you have an option here. At every step level, you can assign a different UI. Let's say we discussed yesterday. What we discussed, there are 3 UI applications are there. UI, this is the standard one, and UI 2. This is Z, which we created by copying the standard, and this is UI 3. I created another Z by copying the standard only. So I have 3 UI applications for same material master. Now, when I choose a CR type while creating my material, I need to select one CR type. Okay. Yesterday I showed you one option where you can, at the CR type level itself, you can assign the UI application. Which UI application you wanted to use, either standard or Z1 or Z2. Now the third option is at each step level also. At each step, let's say for example, you have steps 00, 90, 91, 3 steps. So at step 00 step level, you can call this. This is a requester. For requester, you wanted to show this one. For approver, you wanted to show this. Okay. And for approver 2, you wanted to show this. So this is the third option. The one option we discussed, and this is the third option. What is the third option? At each step level also, you can call different UI applications. So that is what this one.
One quick clarification here. Suppose the requester miss any information, right? So how will which is available in the first UI, the second UI where that approval or approver will see actually, correct? So suppose if we miss anything, right? Oh, sure.
Yeah. So that's why when you are configuring this UI, right? So when you're configuring these UIs, ultimately this UI is a presentation to the end user. But in the backend, it fetches the data from the same database tables.
Okay.
Right? Same set of information. Exactly. So now, for example, whatever the attribute information that you wanted to show to all this, okay. So it will be getting from, you need to ensure that for all, it will be like, let's say, for example, I'll give you one example here. Let's say, for example, you have one UI application. Okay, one UI application. It has 3 entities. Okay, this is basic data. And this is, let's say, for example, basic and what else? Let's say address. I'm just taking the vendor master or customer address. Okay, and then this could be, let's say, company code. Okay, now this is, I wanted to show it to requester level. Requester is 00 step. Okay, this UI I will call. Now I have another UI application with 4 UIs. This is basic data, and this is bank data is also there. And in this one, address data is also there, and company code data is also there. Okay, so this is one UI. Now this UI I'll assign it to approver step, that is 90 step. So now basically what I'm saying is we need to configure in such a way that to the lowest level, requester is the basic person. So for him, I'm just showing all the non-confidential information I'm asking him to enter. But when it comes to approver, it should be a kind of superset. Ideally, for requester, you show the bank data, and for approver, you will hide it. It's not like that, right? So approver will always have the superset of UIs where he can maintain the bank data.
Got it. Got it.
Okay, so in those scenarios, we can configure that different. But see, this is one option where, but in this case, you need to create those many copies. But the same requirement you can also handle via CBA. We discussed in the UI topic, context-based adaptation. In the context-based adaptation, there is something called a workflow step. At workflow step 00, you show only these three. At workflow step 90, you can show all these things. So there you can actually handle. That's why people will mostly use the CBA instead of using this stepwise UI applications.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, but there is an option. This is the second option. At each step level, you can configure different ones. What is the first option? When you are defining the CR type also, there is a field where you can assign the UI application. So let me show you that quickly again. Okay, so when you're defining the CR type itself, on the right hand side, you have this option where you can assign a UI application. Okay, this is the first option. At the step level also you can maintain. This is the second option. And there is one more is the third option where your UI can be determined. After I'll explain that. Once I explain that, we will discuss more about these three options. What is the priority in choosing all these over these options? Okay, that I'll touch base that again. Okay, so fine. Now again, against this each step, there is something called here HC. HC means highlight changes. Highlight changes in the sense, basically, you see here when I'm trying to create one material. Actually, this highlight changes is more helpful in case of change scenarios, not for create scenarios. I'll tell you. So for now, I'm going into the create scenario.
Highlight changes means which will show us in orange color, right?
Yeah, this one only, this orange color one. So whenever you are entering some data or whenever you are doing something, it will highlight that in a this particular color. Okay, so that is the purpose of highlight changes. But why I'm saying it is not much useful during the create scenario, because in create scenario, everything you are entering, so everything is a new data. So it will highlight all the fields. But when you go for a change scenario, what happens is a requester changed one field. Let's say I'm going to search material. So there are around 1,000 attributes are there for material master. So now requester can edit any one attribute. When the request submits to approver and approver doesn't know what attribute he has changed, right? So that's where if highlight changes is there, if the changes done by the previous person is highlighted in a different color, it will be very user eye-catchy, where the user approver can easily identify. Let me see. I'm just opening one of this existing material. Okay, now see all this data is there. Now I wanted to edit this data, so I click on edit. Okay, so now you see here, let's say for example, I change this value to something. Now only this particular field will be highlighted. Rest all of them are in normal fields only. So when approver opens this UI, he will see this particular one. Okay, and if you put a cursor over here, it shows that change log as well. What is the old value and what is the new value? Okay, so when you put your cursor over that particular field, it will show you. Okay, and also there is that I'll show you that there is again another app is there where you can fetch it the change logs as well. But the purpose of this highlight changes is when you select this particular highlight changes checkbox at every step, then only by default this will be selected. Then only this feature will be active and users, it will show that highlight the changes.
So step level highlight changes really required in real projects.
Yes. By default, it will be by default it's selected whenever you create a CR type. let's show we created one CR type, right? What is that? YP01.
Hey, you know, ZaranTech now offers SAP corporate training. That's right. Train your workforce in SAP with our comprehensive program. We offer customized courses, certified trainers, and hands-on labs for both individuals and businesses. Our standout features? Bespoke training, fully configured servers for practice, in-house materials, and a dedicated LMS. Plus, get session recordings and 24/7 support. From functional to technical modules, we have got it all. Choose ZaranTech for SAP training and watch your team excel. Learn, upskill, succeed with ZaranTech.
Okay, this is not ticked. So you need to select this so that it will be helpful for the, maybe not for the create scenario, maybe for change scenario. Wherever you have approval scenarios, you can enable this. For some CR types, it will be an auto approval. So for auto approval CR types, this is not required. Wherever user interaction is there, I mean, someone has to open the CR and approve. Approval process is required. Only for that particular CR type, you can actually select this highlight changes feature. That you can turn it off for create scenario. For change scenario only can enable it.
What you are saying is, even for the approver, what are the users have made the changes, those will be highlighted in the approver window also, right?
Yes, yes, yeah.
Can you go to the enhancements and checks? Here, validation and BRF plus. So here, validation rules 03 option is there, right? So that here, how it will be helpful, like if we enable this one and there will be an attribute level, we are checking, right, that standard or no check, no required, no field required check, something. So this may be overcome by the attribute level, or attribute level will be overcome by this one.
See,
so which one?
If you see, that's what I said. Now, let me show you the hierarchy. You have it enhancement checks. Okay, this is at object level. Object level, which will be applicable for all entities. Okay, now this is the top level. One level down, you have entity level. Same checks. The other level will be attribute level. Okay, now what happens? Let's say, for example, BRF check is there. I unticked this one. Originally it is ticked, but now I unticked this one. When I untick this at BRF level, do you think at entity level you can select it? No, right? Because this is the top level. If it is unticked, that means the checks won't, at any entity level, it doesn't perform the check. At all the entity level, it doesn't perform the check. That means all these entities, there is no check will perform BRF check. This will come into picture, your entity level or attribute level, only in case when you selected this one. That means there are 10 entities are there. So for 10 entities, first system will try to run this one. But if you exclude, let's say entity 3, there is a entity, third entity is there, you wanted to skip that checks, right? So that means only this entity will be skipped from the BRF check, and remaining 9 entities, for 9 entities, BRF checks will be performed. Only for the third entity, it won't perform. Now, okay,
one second, sorry to cut you off. So when you check, in what scenario that E3 will not execute?
BRF, like, I mean, BRF, BRF.
Overall check, right? In that first step, if you check it, correct? It will, entity level also it will cover, and attribute level is also will cover. Actually,
yes, correct? Everything it will be covered. That's why it's all entities plus all attributes.
Exactly.
Okay. From out of this one, I wanted to exclude some entity, one or two entities. Then you can make use of this one so that it will exclude whatever you mentioned entities and entities that will be excluded, and only for the remaining entities, all these checks will be performed.
Got it. The first step when you check it, like, it will cover everything. And that suppose if you have 10 entity, if I don't want to, the BRF to be called for a specific entity, where I can just incorporate this in the entity.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Now the third attribute is there. Okay. Now you haven't maintained any entity here. That means system will try to perform for all the 10 entities. But out of these 10 entities, for a particular entity, let's say you have the same third entity, entity 3. Here you have attribute 1, attribute 2, attribute 3. Now for this attribute, you don't want it to run the BRF. That means out of for 9 entities, for all the attributes, it will perform. But for the third entity, right, that is the 10th entity, for that one only, for these 2 attributes only, it will perform the check. For the third attribute, it will skip that one.
Even though we selected standard at attribute level, it will not considered because we are unchecked at the object level.
Yeah. So if you untick this one, that means you are saying that I don't want it to run any checks for all the objects, for all the entities. Then this will be applicable for all these things. You cannot, whether it doesn't matter whether you skip it or not at the other 2 level. Main level itself, you are bypassing the checks.
Got it.
Okay, fine.
So if you uncheck at the topmost level, at the object level, and then if you want to do only one attribute level at somewhere in some object, can we do that, or is it mandatory that you should have checked it in the top level and then uncheck everywhere else and then check only where it is required at the attribute level? So what I'm asking is, if there is if you unchecked at the top level, can you check in the attribute or lower level? Is that possible, or is it? It'll allow you to check it, right?
Yeah, it will allow you to check that one. There is no issue with that. Okay, now see here. You have at the overall object level, what you have, let's say duplicate check is there, BRF is there, baddie is there. Okay, now I'm unticking this BRF1. Okay, which means there is no BRF rule will be performed or executed for all entities, all attributes.
Right.
Okay, now I'll go to the attribute level. There I will say no checks to be performed. Right, for particular attribute.
No, by default, it will not perform now because you unchecked it at the top.
So only see this check anyway, it won't perform for any entity, but the other checks will be performed for all the entities, right?
Yes.
Okay, but at the attribute level, when you skip that one, for that particular attribute, all these checks will be skipped. Okay, I'll tell you. See, let me go to that attribute level. See, I'll go to attribute level. Select this. Just a minute. Okay, I'll go to Mara sales. Okay, so now at attribute level, here you are not specifying BRF check to be skipped, or baddie check to be skipped, or duplicate checks to be skipped, or reuse area to be skipped, or authorized check to be skipped. here only two options, either all or none.
Right.
When I select this option, no check will be performed for this particular attribute.
Right.
Even though when you select standard, if we uncheck out of many at that overall object level, that specific whatever we checked, that only
Yes.
we can use it, right? Okay.
Yes, that's true. Yeah. Okay.
In this case, you cannot modify particular checks for the attributes.
No, it depends on the setting, right? When you select not relevant, that means this field will become read only.
Okay.
If you select this option, you can input that, but there won't be any check. But if you select this option, when you say standard, that means whatever the checks that you have selected over here, ticked over here,
object level.
all those object level, all those will be performed. That means in this case, it will perform authorization check, existence check, reuse area check, and this whatever the data quality check.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, I think the basic idea is that you should have checked everything at the top level and then exclude where you don't need it. That's maybe the easiest option rather than going the other way around.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. It's all combinations. It will work. This is the superset. You can see this is a superset, and at each attribute level or entity level, you have a subset, either subset of the entity or attribute work.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. Here, actually, one more option is also there. You can see, especially this option will be enabled only for duplicate check. What is that option? Execute when data changes. There is an option. For all other things, that option is grayed out. And for duplicate check only, this option is enabled. That too, SAP clearly by default, they said execute when data changes. Okay. For all other checks, they mentioned always execute. And for this one, they clearly specified only when data changes happen. Okay. So by the name itself, it says that this duplicate check has, though you said duplicate check has to be performed, but this duplicate check will be performed only when there is a change in the data. That means I will tell you here. Let's say, for example, we will talk about the duplicate check in data quality topic along with the BRF validations and derivations. Okay, but let's say this is your UI application. Okay, in the UI application, let's say basically you said your duplicate criteria. How do you? Every person has to identify. I mean, when you're configuring this duplicate check, let's say, for example, for customer or vendor, you need to discuss with the business and ask them, hey, what is the definition of duplicate check for you in your organization? Because some people in some organization, they identify duplicate based on the address data. If address is matching, it's a duplicate record. Some organizations identify duplicate records based on DUNS number. There is something called DUNS ID. So DUNS based on some DUNS number. Some organization will identify duplicates based on bank data. Because if bank data is matching, it's a clear-cut duplicate. Some people will identify duplicates based on some tax data. So likewise, duplicate criteria differs from organization to organization. Okay. So first we need to identify what is the criteria to identify your duplicate. Okay. Now you identified my duplicate. Most commonly used is address. Okay. So address means, let's say, for example, you'll have name, and then street, postal code, okay, and then state, and then city, country. Okay, so you specify these are my duplicate criteria. Then system automatically performs the duplicate check in the backend. That how to configure, that we will discuss in data quality topic. Okay, but now for now, you said this is your duplicate criteria. Now on the UI, user will enter name as XYZ, street is 10, post office of 123, and let's say, for example, state is let's say NJ. Okay, so this is the data user entered, and when he hit enter, automatically it will go and fire your duplicate check. And if there is any matching record, its system will show a pop-up that hey, this based on this data, these are the probable duplicates. You get that kind of pop-up. I will show you that pop-up for your visualization purpose for now, but we will discuss in detail later, because you will visualize that how the duplicate check
this duplicate check will go through, like, not go through workflow. It will go through only wherever, from UI, staging area, and staging area to apply, active area, correct? Sure.
It will identify the duplicates from your active area.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. So now you can see here, this is how the pop-up will look like. Someone is creating a business partner over here with this data, and based on this data, there is a potential duplicate found, and this is one of the existing business partner in the system. Likewise, if there are more, it will show more records over here. This is the duplicate check pop-up. I will show you this how to configure this one. Okay. Now the point here is, okay, so user entered this data, and that means he entered this data and he clicked the hit button or whatever, performed some action, duplicate check is performed. After that, now in the same UI, I also have bank data section. Okay, if I'm entering some bank data, okay, so this, once I enter this data, it showed me the duplicate check pop-up. I said, okay, I wanted to go ahead and create this customer. And after that, I'm continuing with my other updates. I'm entering the bank data. So during this time also, once I enter the bank data and hit enter, right, I'm actually not changing my whatever I entered earlier. I'm changing now other data. This time I don't want it to run the duplicate check. In general, what happens, system will perform again and again. Now you see this option. Okay, execute when data changes. That means whatever your duplicate criteria, the attributes which you configured to be part of your duplicate criteria attributes, only when those attributes got changed, then only you trigger the duplicate check. Otherwise, if you select this option, that means after address data, system triggered the duplicate check, and which is fine. After that, when you go ahead with other updates like bank data or sales data, purchasing data, every time system will perform again and again, the duplicate check pop-up will come if you select this option. Always executed. So that's why by default, SAP selects this option. And we strongly recommend to keep this option only. Okay, I don't know why they gave it always executed, what is the point, but this option will ensure that the pop-up, though you select this duplicate check, only when you change the attributes which are part of duplicate check, only then the duplicate check will be performed. And it makes sense. If you do some other updates also, then again, if you trigger the duplicate check, there is no reason or it doesn't look good. So that's why this option is there. Clear? But
which attribute is connected to? How do we know which attribute it is?
That we know, the system will look at it. There is a back. You will configure your duplicate check right somewhere in the configuration. So when this option is there, system will read your duplicate check configuration, and it will look at all the attributes which are part of the duplicate check. And only when those attributes got changed, system will perform that duplicate check.
So then we create that
configuration. Yes.
Policy or whatever that we need to do.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
So in this case, we don't need to write any logic extension.
Nothing. It's a configuration. All these configurations are interconnected. Okay. So there is a duplicate check configuration is there, which we will discuss this one. Now you see here, I'll just show you. Just give me a minute.
So one another clarification, actually.
Yeah. So let me just finish this. So you see there is a duplicate check configuration. In data quality, we will be discussing duplicate check. And in this configuration, you will add the attributes which should be part of duplicate criteria. Then in your stepwise configuration, system will read the attributes. And if there are any changes to that attributes, then only your duplicate check will perform.
Okay. Let's assume I am a requester and you are approver. When I request or fill any other material related information, if I select that particular duplicate check at that CR type level, where it will go on the active area and check and throw a message, correct?
Yes.
Okay. There itself.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it will on fly itself. It will query in the backend, and it will show you that the result. Okay.
But when you choose, if you're chosen like bank data as your bank account number or something as a duplicate check attribute, and then do you have to check the same field or same attribute within that object? Under that object, we should have go down to that attribute level and then choose that, or is it not required?
No, I didn't understand your question. Can you come again?
So we check and check all these conditions, all these things at the object level, and then we can go down to attribute level. So if
No,
I
nothing.
choose
You don't need to go. No, you don't need to go here. We are not talking about what is your duplicate criteria, bank or address or something. What you can configure here, if you go to this step level configuration, okay, here we are saying that duplicate check should perform or not. Only that's it.
Yeah.
Okay.
But my question is whether if I chose the bank ID or bank code as the part of my duplicate check, should I go to that attribute level and then select anything at all, or
nothing? Not required. All you need to do, it's a very two-step process. One is first you need to configure your duplicate check. That configuration we will discuss in the data quality topic. Once that is done, you need to, if at all you wanted to perform the duplicate check at what step, you come over here and ensure that at that step level, this is ticked. That's it. Nothing much.
Okay.
Here, executed when data changes means while for the creation request it will not applicable. That is the meaning here.
No, data change means you can, it's for create or change or anytime. Change means don't think always it's a change scenario. Okay, I'm creating, now here, I'm creating a material. Let's say, for example, I'll create a material. Okay, in create also, let's say, for example, assume that my duplicate criteria is a combination of this one plus this one. Assume that. This is the combination of my duplicate check. Okay, so now I entered this data, system perform the duplicate check. After that, again, I can come back and I can change this to some other value. That means this is a change. Initially, you enter some value and now you are changing it. Basically, when this data gets changed, that means that can happen in create and that can happen in change scenario also.
While create scenario, we are not save or submitting, right? So only we are in edit mode. So even in edit mode, we are changing some data, then it will applicable.
Yeah, that is applicable. Okay, fine.
So if both the validation, like both the scenario will be applicable for duplicate check, then it will pop up here itself before submitting the request. We can
yeah, before that's the intention. Before submitting the request itself, system should show, and you need to validate and take a call whether to submit it or not. After submitting that request or after approving that request, there is no point in performing the duplicate check. Okay.
For example, here old material number, first we have entered ABC, right? So instead of ABD, so first time itself it will pop up duplicate check or not, even though if it is a duplicate value. For example, here FPRT, here ABD.
That is what this setting, right? Execute when data changes. What does that mean? Initially, I entered ABC.
Yeah, first time you entered ABC, right? Instead of that, directly you entered ABD. First time itself you entered ABD. Then it will pop up.
Anytime, if this attribute is part of your duplicate check configuration, anytime when you are changing this value, one value to other value, it will trigger. Whether you enter ABC first and then ABD or ABD first and ABC.
Only changing the value it will be trigger, or directly if we give duplicate value it will trigger actually.
What is duplicate value?
Like for example, for FERT, ABD, if you enter, then it should replicate. It should show that it is a duplicate. So what we are doing
No,
here, first we are
see,
giving.
this duplicate check is at the object level. Okay, you are getting my point. So let's say, for example, I created one customer with this address. Okay, now the user doesn't, business doesn't know that my customer record is already there. What they will do when I'm going to purchase something else second time, then they will ask all the details, right? When I enter all the details, again, if they try to enter all the details, and if they create another record, there are two duplicate records are there. There are two records are there for the same customer. This combination forms a duplicate, not one attribute.
That combination, while for example, I'm a requester, I'm going to create a material. I'm going to raise a create material request.
First,
so
you tell me what is your duplicate criteria.
It will be address.
No, from this screen. In this screen, just
From
take
this
material
screen,
master and take one duplicate criteria. Now, based on the duplicate criteria, you give me a scenario and I'll tell you what is the behavior.
Okay. Here, material number, no, material name is there? No.
Let's take a material description, or else let's take any two fields. A material type and old material number combination should not be same.
Yeah, it should not be same. But first time I'm going to create raise a create request. So in this case, I entered FERT and ABC value.
Yes.
Here, for example, there is a duplicate with the same value in active stage. Then it will trigger duplicate, right?
Yes.
Or else.
No, it will trigger.
Yeah. Okay. So first time itself, if you enter the duplicate values which are already there, then it will show us a duplicate. Not second time we are changing.
No. Second time also. See, I got your point. What you were trying to say. It's not like where you are entering the same duplicate value, system will perform the duplicate check. Right now, as per what you were saying, FERT and ABC, there is already one record exists. Now you are trying to create another material with same material type and old ABC indicator. Okay, system will perform. There is a duplicate check. There it will show you the duplicate record. Now after that, what I did is I changed this ABC to ABD, and again I hit enter. This time also system will perform in the backend duplicate check. Are there any records exist in the system with FERT and ABD? If there is a record again exist, it will show the pop-up. If there is no record exist, you get a message, no duplicate record found.
Okay, then what is the difference for the standard in the standard scenario?
Standard scenario means?
There we have two options. One is standard and another one is executed when data changes, right?
Okay, so now the difference I'll tell you. Now let's say you entered ABC. There is a duplicate record there, right? Now you got a pop-up, duplicate record pop-up. Then system, you wanted to continue to create this record. So you click the OK button, and after that, you are changing some other value, you are entering some other value, you wanted to continue, right? Let's say these values are there, material type and AB, old material number. Now I'm entering other data. I entered this data. Do you think that duplicate check should trigger this time?
No.
Why?
That combination is not there, right, with the other field.
What is the combination?
Okay, only material type and old material number is there. So yeah, it will trigger duplicate check.
That you can control here. What do you mean by execute when data changes? That means initially you already entered this and system showed the pop-up. After that you said okay, and you are continuing with other data, but you are not changing these values again on the same screen. When you are not changing the values again on the same screen, here what I'm saying is only when data changes. This means only when data changes means if any of these two attributes, if those attributes again gets changed, then only trigger the duplicate check. If these values are not changing and if you're continuing with other entities, you don't want it to run the duplicate check.
If we are changing the values, then it will
just
not
wanted to,
trigger
is
duplicate.
everyone getting confused with this, or others are clear with this?
One clarification here, the duplicate check. So
Yeah.
when you say like, the material type and the old material, the combination only, are we taking only these two fields in the duplicate check? Because in material, there is a general data itself where we have many fields, correct?
No, I'm just taking this as an example only.
Example, but it will cover everything, right? Like meaning that, like, with all the combination apart from the key field, right? Like material and material type.
No. Actually, you are, see, the thing is that each people will have their own different criteria. Okay, that is what, now it's not, there is no hard and fast always, this should be the duplicate criteria. So for when it comes to the material master, there is an attribute called EAN, International Article Number. Okay, so yeah, so that usually for material master, people will use that as a duplicate criteria. That should be unique for you, each your material.
Okay.
Okay, so here I'm just taking this as an example. Let's say, for example, if these two are part of my duplicate check, or if these are not, then probably maybe the where is that EA? Yeah, this one, EAN or UPC, right? So if this is my duplicate criteria, so then I enter some value, system performs the duplicate check, and after that, again, I'm not changing this one. But if I'm continuing with other updates, and there is no change on for the same attribute in the same transaction,
it's going to be overwrite, or it's right.
So if there is no change, I mean, see what I'm trying to say. You entered some value over here in EAN initially, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so let's say, for example, 1, 2, 3 I entered now. Okay, system triggered the duplicate check. And I wanted to continue with the creation of this material. I don't want it to skip the process. Okay, so I entered this value and a duplicate check triggered and accepted. Okay, I agreed that there is a duplicate check, but still I wanted to go ahead and continue. And after that, when I'm entering other values also, what happens in the backend in general, because there is some data change, whether that is your part of duplicate criteria attribute change or some other attribute change, system will perform the check again and again. You take this example, other things are there, right? So whenever you do, all these are always executed, which means you created one baddie validation, and system performed that one. After that, when you enter some data and hit enter, every time these validations will keep on running. But for duplicate check, I don't want it to run every time, because if I'm getting every time the pop-up, right, I'm entering some other data on the same screen. When I'm entering some other data, if I'm keep on getting the duplicate check pop-up, it will irritate the user. It's not because he already confirmed that, okay, duplicate is there and no need to run that again and again. He already confirmed and accepted that, but I don't want it to show it again and again. That's why only when data change, that means whatever your duplicate criteria, those attributes will get changed, then only it will run the duplicate check. If at all you wanted to run it always, then you can set it always executed. Always executed means you enter your duplicate criteria attributes, and after that, if you are entering your sales, purchase, other attributes as well, the pop-up will keep on coming. But in reality, you are not changing your duplicate check attributes. You already entered once, system showed that pop-up, and after that, if there is no change to that attribute, there is no point in showing that running the duplicate check again and again.
Okay, got it.
So if you have any confusion still, see, one thing is, if this is what the default setting, and you will always keep this, you don't change it. But what I'm showing you, I'm trying to make you understand what is the difference between these two things. The difference is, if you select this always executed, then on the UI, on this UI, as we discussed, FERT and ABC is my duplicate criteria. Okay, so that means I entered ABC, these two values. System performed the duplicate check and I got the pop-up and clicked on OK. Fine. After this, I'm not only stopping the process or submitting the request, right? I need to enter the remaining data. What is the remaining data? I'll enter authorization group and I hit enter. This time it should not perform the duplicate check, because already performed one time the duplicate check with the same set of data. There is no point in running the duplicate check again with the same set of data. This duplicate check again should perform only either of these two field got changed again. That means I will move this FERT to, let's say, for example, this material 12. Then it makes sense to run the duplicate check with this blue combination.
Got it. Thank you.
What sets ZaranTech apart in SAP corporate training? It's our unique blend of expertise and innovation. We offer customized courses tailored to each client's needs, ensuring relevant, targeted learning. Our vast trainer database brings you wisdom from the best in the field. Need resources? Access our extensive training material repository anytime. We are all about measurable results, providing detailed student metrics to track progress. And we don't just teach, we build community. Join our thriving social media network, connecting learners beyond boundaries. With ZaranTech, you are not just training, you are transforming your SAP expertise.
Clear, right? Is this clear to everyone? So on the same, within the same screen, if it already runs one time, then when you are entering the other data, we don't want it to run it. That is what only when the data gets changed. Here you have this option. Execute when data changes. What do you mean by when data changes? Either of these two fields if gets changed, then only you run it second time. Again, you change this either of these two values, again run the third time. But if the duplicate check is performed with this combination once, then when you are entering some other data, don't run the duplicate check. Why? Because with this combination already ran once. That's the only intention. Okay?
Thank you.
Yeah, sure, no problem. Okay, so that is about this particular setting as well. So we are done basically with the change request step configurations. Just go through these recordings, yesterday's and today's recording as well once again before next session. And if you have any specific questions, you just we can discuss further, no issues. Okay, because this will little bit confuse everyone. You have all these different combinations and everything with the combination of steps, right? Little bit it will confuse you. Okay, but we can discuss that again if you have any questions next session as well. Okay, now after this we wanted to go with workflow topic. Okay, so in workflows, majorly there are two type of workflows are there. Okay, so one is we call it as a simple workflow. Simple workflow. The other one we call it as a BRF plus workflow, or people will call it as a rule-based workflows. Okay, so these are the two type of workflows, and 99.99% or 100%, we will always in any implementation project we go with this one only. BRF workflows only. Simple workflow is nothing but SAP already developed one workflow with the required steps. That is, there is a workflow W star ending with 40. This is a workflow number. I'll show you here. Okay, so here, okay, so there's a definition, change request definition, this one. Okay, so when I say simple workflow is this one, that is 40. This is the workflow number, actual workflow number. And this particular simple workflow, you can assign it to any of the data models, any of the CR types, CR type, your custom CR types or custom objects, anything. All these both are kind of, it's not hard-coded on this. It's not that always it will work only for or PP. Either this one or this one, both will work for any objects, any CR types, customer standard. Okay, so now let's look this workflow SAP has provided, and first let me explain what is it's always a static behavior. When I say static behavior, this workflow designed for two-step approval process only. When I say two-step approval process, it will be something like this: requester, okay, and then requester enter the data and he click the submit button. it goes to approver 1. Then approver will review the data and he can approve that request. It goes to approver 2. And after that, once approver 2 can approve, then there is a next process activation, okay, where the inactive record will turn into active record and the workflow will be completed. And in this process, approver 1 can reject this particular request. He can reject or he can approve that request. Okay, approver 2 also can reject that request, or he can approve that one. Okay, now what happens in both the cases? If there is a rejection, we have something called revision step. So where the people here also there will be some group of people. So they will review the rejection reasons or comments why this request was rejected. And after that, if they need to correct some data, they'll correct the data here, and then they can resubmit the request. They can resubmit the request. Or else they think that the requester approver added a comment saying that, hey, this request is no more valid, please withdraw, cancel this request. Instead of resubmit, they have an option to withdraw the CR, withdraw the request. That means in case of withdraw, there is something called rollback process. Rollback process means your object will be released from that particular request, your material or whatever that was, and the workflow will be closed. So this is how your two-step approval process look like. Now this entire thing you can configure using 86 workflow, or else SAP already provided this process under 40 workflow. So this 40 workflow always behaves like this only. Okay, so you cannot change the behavior. You cannot turn this from 2-step to 1-step or auto approval. It always works like this. So mostly we use this 40 workflow for some demo purpose. Quickly wanted to demo it to someone else. So you can just simply assign this 40 workflow to your change request type, and you can show the demo. So when you're using this 40 workflow, what are the things that you need to do? First thing is you will be assigning this 40 workflow to your CR type. It can be MM or BP or any object. You can just simply assign it to this one, CR type. Once you assign this to your CR type, the next second configuration is you can come back to workflows. Here, other workflows, something called assign processor to change request step for simple workflow. That means you need to assign agents at every step. What do you mean by agents? Who are the requester, who can request, who can approve here, and who can add the revision team, who are the agents. So these are the only places where user interaction is required. So you need to assign agents at these steps.
You say agent determination, correct? So like say example, some of them fall under business partner, some of them fall under material master and vendor, correct? So how will we define whether that particular person is going to be requester, and some scenario the same person may be requester for some other process and approved for some other process, correct? Exactly.
So what I'm saying now, you look at this one. For this YP change request type, so YP change request type, here I'm specifying for this one, this is a requester step, 1 is approver 1, 2 is approver 2, 3 is revision. So for this CR type, for this particular requester step, he is the person who can assign. For approver 1, he is the person assigned.
There could not be multiple person.
That option is there. I will explain that again. So for now, we are just assigning. I'm just showing you how to assign agents to your work steps. Okay. Now, how I can assign multiple users, how I can assign a role, all those things are there. That we will come. We will discuss later. Okay. One simple way to answer your immediate thing, you can copy the same this particular row. Let's say approver row, you can make one more entry with the same step as in a different agent. So 2 persons can be approver. Okay, or else you can have here, there is a org ID is also there. I'll discuss about organization unit position. This is a position is a manager position. Okay, so at manager position, you will assign some manager ID. To this manager ID, you can assign some group of users. So that thing is there that we will discuss. Okay, but that definitely that is possible. It's not necessary always one person. Multiple people also you can assign. That we will discuss in the next session. Okay.
Sure.
Okay, is that person based or role based? Is that, say, for
all
example,
options are there. All options are there. You can assign. See, now there is an approver step. Let me show you here. Approver 1 step is there. So this approver 1 step we are denoting with this is 0, 0. This is 0, 1. If you look at this step, this is approver 1. 2 is approver 2. 0, 2 is approver 2. Okay. Now you have options. 0, 1 is your approver 1 step. At approver 1 step, either you can assign the users, user 1, user 2, user 3, or else you can assign a role. Okay. So this role is, let's say, manager role. Manager role. Okay. Now this manager role can be assigned to multiple users. User 1, user 2, user 3, likewise.
Okay.
Okay. And likewise, you have org ID is there, and there is something called a position is also there. Likewise, different things are there where you can control different user groups. That we will discuss in the next sessions. But that is possible.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So now coming back to your simple workflow, what we have done, just 2 steps. One is against my CR type, I assigned that 40 workflow, and after that I came to this particular configuration. At every workflow step, I assigned the agents. That's it. No configuration, no other steps are required. Okay, if you do this one, I can immediately go back to my application. This is the application which we created, custom application. Okay, now here, what I will do is, I'm just showing you one demo of how it works, your 40 workflow works. We saw that on paper. Now see here, this is the workflow, right? So now if you look at that thing, so these are the 2 CR types, YP01, YP11. For the second one, we assigned 86 workflow, but we haven't configured anything. But for the first one, we just assigned 40 workflow, and we added the users. At all the user level, my username is only, I assigned my name only. Okay. So MDG, IMG, general, this one, central governance, settings, process model, workflows, other workflows, assign agents to workflows. Okay. Here, YP. Okay. So now see, this is my user ID, which I'm using. My name only assigned as a requester, approver 1, approver 2, and revision 10. Okay. Now we'll see the demo, how it works. So this is my YP01 CR type. I selected this. That means in the backend 40 workflow will start. I clicked on OK. Okay. I'll enter some data, material number, something. Okay. This is requester step. We are now at this level, requester 00 level. Okay. So now we are at this level, 00 level. Okay. Now I entered the data. Now click on submitting. Submit means when you click on submit, your requester step is completed. You are confirming at 00, you are done from your side. Now system will pick up the next person in the workflow. So I've just clicked on submit button. That means what happens? This is completed. Now it will go to this step. At approver 1 step, my name is there. So when I do a refresh, it will come to me. See, now I have an option. Now this is at the approver step. At approver step, I have 2 options. Finalized processing means it's a kind of approval. Sent for revision means it's a rejection thing. Okay. Now I can actually approve this request. Now in this diagram, if approver 1 approves, where it should go? What is the next step?
Approve 2.
Approver 2, right? So I click on finalize processing. So approver 1 is completed. Now it will go to approver 2. I'll do a refresh. See, now we are at approver 2. How do you know you are at approver 2? There is a workflow log. Click on this button. Now you can see here, first approver 1, he already completed the workflow step. And what is the decision he has chosen? Finalize processing. Now it is ready at approver 2. Okay, so now what I can do? Either I can approve the request, okay, or else if I reject this request, where should it go?
It will go to revision.
Revision step, right? So we can give a try. So instead of approving, I'll select the reject. I'll enter some revision comments. Click on OK. Now it will go to the revision step. When I do a refresh, I can see in the as per this diagram, now the workflow is at this level, at revision step. At revision step level, what option we are giving? Resubmit and withdraw. Resubmit means user will do all the changes again and he can resubmit. So when he resubmit this request, where it should go?
Approver 1. Yep.
Yeah, so it will go to approver 1. So I'll resubmit this request.
So when it arrived at the revision level, but because any reason where they will reject it, right? So the requester could open the revision work item and where they will do the update and then resubmit it. It will go to the approver 1, right? Okay, got it.
Yes, exactly. So now it went to approver 1 again. I'll do a refresh. Again at approver 1, you see these two options are there. Okay, so I'll again finalize processing. It will go to approver 2. Now at approver 2, I'll approve this request. That means that request is now, it will initiate the next step, activation step. This is the background step and it will complete automatically and the workflow will be closed. Okay, now you can see the status in the backend. If you go to the workflow log, you can see the complete history. Initially, approver 1 approved. After that, approver 2 rejected. Then it went to revision team and revision team again resubmitted. And after that, it approver 1 again approved and approver 2 also again approved.
So we don't need to go to SWIA transaction to view this, right?
Sometimes here you don't need to in this case, but sometimes it won't move to the status. It will give some error or stuck somewhere. So then you can go to that one. Okay, so that we will discuss in what cases you will go and everything. Yeah, but this is how you are. Now this 40 workflow always works like this. You assign that 40 workflow number to material master CR type or customer master CR type, finance CR type or article master CR type or your custom object CR type, or whether it will be creation scenario, change scenario, or any scenario, the behavior will be same.
Same, but only 2-step, right? One is
yeah, it's always 2-step. Now business say that, hey, I want an auto approval scenario or 1-step approval scenario. Then you cannot use this 40 workflow because it always works as a 2-step. And there is no, see, we haven't configured anything. You just assign that one or to your CR type and you added the agents. That's it. We haven't configured any steps. But other than this behavior, if you need anything else you wanted to handle, then we always go with the other workflow, that is W*86. Okay, 86 workflow. So this 86 workflow.
Sorry, Akshay, is there any way we can visually see the status of workflow? Like, maybe there are multiple workflows going at the same time. So is there a way to visualize which
only
workflows are lost together?
Only the workflow log which I showed you.
Okay, so that's more of a text-based view only, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Visualization, there's nothing like that.
No, not full. I mean, usually when in Oracle and all, it's just shows the complete workflow. Wherever it failed, it shows a red color cross or something, and then you can easily see where it is actually failing and what action needs to be taken and things like that.
There are transaction codes are there as the transaction codes where you can see where it got stuck, those things, but not as it's a text-based kind of thing.
Okay, that's fine. Okay.
Okay. Now, so we saw the demo for 4.0 workflow. Now in the next session, we will do this configuration because our intention is we wanted to learn 86 workflow because this is the one which will be used in the projects. Okay. But before this, I just wanted to give you a glimpse how the workflows, MDG workflow look like using this sample or demo workflow number. But now our actual workflows, we will configure from here. So when you assign this workflow to your change request type, right? So this CR type plus this 86, this combination will become unique. With this combination, you need to define the steps and configuring those 3 decision tables, which I just mentioned yesterday. So once you know how to define the steps and how to populate the entries into the tables, that's it. Your 86 workflow is also very easy.
As you said, there will be separate transaction codes where we can able to identify where we stuck in that workflow.
That is for the technical person, and one should have knowledge on ABAP workflows.
For BRF plus also, no need to have
no other transactions. For BRF also, whether you are going with the normal configuration and everything, from MDG, MG, whatever I'm showing, that is more than enough. Okay, but if somewhere it got stuck and you wanted to troubleshoot something in the back end and everything, that you will be troubleshooting at the ABAP workflow level. For that one should have knowledge on ABAP workflows. That's where the technical person also, maybe the technical person will have knowledge on ABAP workflow or not. If you don't have any knowledge in the ABAP workflow, it will be difficult for him to trace that one as well. Okay, but what I'm saying is for the functional persons, this is more than enough. Whatever we are going to discuss about the 86 workflow. But somewhere if that can happen out of 100 cases, maybe one CR can stuck someplace. So definitely we need to involve some technical person. We cannot handle on our own, from the functional side. That requires the technical knowledge. But what I'm trying to say, first focus on this one. Whatever I'm explaining on the 86 workflow, just focus on that one. Once you understand all these things, after that, if you're interested, I can explain those things as well. But if you're leaving this and focusing on the other stuff, we will be losing this and that both. Okay. So first focus on whatever we are going to discuss about the 86 workflow completely. We'll be explaining this 86 workflow, how it works, right from I will show you a working demo in the system, and then we will see the output as well. Okay. On top of that one, we will discuss all the business scenarios. There are multiple number of business scenarios we can handle. Okay, so we'll be discussing about the enhancements, baddies, which scenario, which baddie you need to use, all that stuff we will be discussing in the next thing. So once let's focus on this, whatever we are going to discuss. After that, we'll talk about, I will also give you some troubleshooting techniques from the technical other T code as well. Okay. Any questions? Okay, but just tell me like this 4.0 workflow. So you saw the demo and right, it's very simple and straightforward. But this knowledge, right, whatever I showed you the demo, where it goes, how it goes, but we will use you will design this using 86 workflow. Now this SAP designed this using 4.0. The same thing you can design it using 86 workflow as well. So there also I'll draw the same picture.
Clarification, but it's a simple workflow and the BRF rule based also, right? We are going to discuss next, correct? So apart from that, is there any other requirement or situation where we will end up writing any custom code actually? You mentioned that baddie.
Yes. Yeah. So there are baddies are also there. We will SAP provided all the baddies, and all the requirements from your project can be handled using those 4 baddies itself. Nothing will be required. Now you see, this is the rule-based workflow which we are going to discuss. Once we discuss this workflow, then we will be talking about these baddies. So each baddie is meant for certain purpose. So we will discuss. So this node configuring your workflow plus these baddies will handle all sort of requirements.
But these are completely UI based, not code based, right?
This is UI based, and this is obviously baddie is a code based one.
Okay.
There is 40-star workflow. Is it common across?
Yeah, objects, all objects. Yes, yes.
All objects.
Yes. All objects.
It'll be the role that it is assigned. Say, for example, one XYZ assigned as a finance manager who can approve, but at the same time there will be a material manager, somebody else is having a different name or role. Then don't we need two different approvers for these two types of people, or do we have to copy the same workflow and then fill with different roles for different types of objects?
No. So I'll tell you here. I got your question. So there's nothing copy kind of thing. Let's say, for example, you have workflow 1. Okay. Now for this workflow 1, you have requester, approver, only one step approval, activation, and workflow is completed. You have another workflow 2, which this is CR type, one CR type, and this is another CR type. Okay, now here the scenario is like requester, approver 1, approver 2, and activation, and then workflow is completed. First thing is both workflow configurations are too different. That means if you are using 86 workflow, you need to configure this workflow completely, and you need to configure, if you're for this one, you need to do a complete configuration if it is 86. Both are two. Now when it comes to when it comes to users, let's say here in your case, approver is let's say I would say manager 1. Here also it's a manager 1, and this is manager 2. Now you have one person X. X is a person. This person has a role of manager 1. When this particular person has a role of X, manager 1, he will be part of this workflow and he will be part of this workflow. There is a person Y who is a part of manager 1, manager 2 roles. 2. Okay, that means he will be part of this one Y, and he will be part of, because this person is part of manager 1 and manager 2. So in manager 1 also this Y person will come, here also he will come, and here also he will come.
Yeah, no, I understand, but I think the object, say for example, a new material creation and a new cost center creation, they both are action of create workflow, but the material approval by material manager, but then cost center creation will be done by finance manager. So
understood. So you will be having two separate roles, right? So for cost center, you will use manager 3. For cost center approval, you will develop a role called manager 3.
Okay. So then manager 3 can be assigned to
cost center approval. So it all depends on the roles. Okay. Let's say, for example, I have my user ID involved in multiple roles, and your user ID also has multiple roles. If I'm using my roles in different workflows, like at the workflow level, you will assign a role. Like in material creation also my role is there, and cost center creation also there, and some other persons also, roles of objects also, my role is there. So my user ID will appear in all those roles, all those workflows.
Okay, so the only point is that then the material manager should not be approving the cost center creation. How do we prevent that?
Yeah, in that case, you create two separate roles, right? So one role for material, one for role cost center. You assign that material role to all the material managers, cost center role to the finance managers, two separate roles.
So you can basically, if I choose create workflow, say workflow 2 as a create function, create action, the same workflow can be used for finance cost center creation. The same workflow can be created.
No. So, you can, one workflow is for one CR type. Again, for cost finance also, you need to create a third workflow. Third workflow means basically
So
you will
CR
assign the same. You will assign a 86 workflow with the finance cost center CC01 is the CR type. So again, you need to do all the configurations.
All right. Okay. So it's not decided at the workflow level, but it's decided at the CR type level.
Exactly. It's CR type level.
Yeah.
How
CR
many
types,
CR types?
maybe two.
Yes.
Yes. CR type maybe CR1 maybe cost center creation. CR2 maybe material creation. So but they may both use common workflow template, and you have two different workflows going, two different roles approving, and no interference on each other.
Yes.
All right. Okay. Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Okay. Fine. Any questions from anyone?
There is a template, workflow template, W86 and W40. So is there any other templates available for MDG?
No, only these two. Only these two are the ones. 86 is the one most we will be using 86 only. No other workflow, whether it's a material master, BP, because I have worked on MM implementations, BP implementation, finance, article master, all these implementations. Everywhere, whenever I create a new CR type, I'll assign 86 and I will start configuring the workflow with this combination, the CR type and 86 combination.
So this is the most used template in MDG then?
Yes.
Mostly.
Okay. Yep.